On one hand, the ability to understand hidden messages and codes is a valuable skill. On the other hand, the ability to produce these same ciphers and codes is also a highly respected skill. Over the generations, the best cryptologists in the world have managed to crack some of history's most famous codes. Still, there are a lot of codes that elude any rational explanation. Hi, I'm Mr. Mysterious. Today, I'll be your guide through some of the most mysterious messages and codes. We'll be exploring secret messages and the stories behind them that are sometimes even more intriguing than the secrets they hold. Let's take a look at 5 of the most confounding codes we could find. The Beale Papers. More than a century ago, a small pamphlet titled The Beale Papers caused quite a stir. The reason for this lies in the pamphlet's 3 ciphered texts, which allegedly contain directions to a sizable treasure buried in a secret location in Bedford County, Virginia. Even though the texts have captured the imagination and enthusiasm of cryptographers, 2 out of 3 ciphers still remain unsolved. The main protagonist of this story is named Thomas J. Beale, who, reportedly, came across a treasure consisting of gold, silver, and jewels in a mine near Santa Fe, New Mexico. Beale and his fellow adventurists transported the treasure to Bedford County, where they buried it in a secret location. Beale then wrote 3 encoded letters, one giving the exact location of the treasure, a second giving its detailed description, and a third giving the names and contact information of his partners. He placed the letters in an iron box and gave them to a trusted friend, the local innkeeper named Robert Morris. The story goes that Beale instructed Morris not to open the box unless he or his partners failed to return from a journey within 10 years. More than 20 years later, Morris decided to open the box, which is when he found the 3 letters. When Morris failed to decipher the letters, he made them public through the Beale Papers pamphlet. Even though this happened in 1885, we still can't crack this code. There are some clues that suggest that the whole story is nothing more than a hoax, but that hasn't prevented cryptographers from working tirelessly, even to this day. They all hope that the Bedford County countryside hides a secret that could change their lives forever. The Kryptos. In 1988, the CIA Fine Arts Commission hired local artist James Sanborn to create a cryptographic sculpture for a courtyard on the CIA campus. Sanborn completed the 2-part sculpture in 1990. Which includes a series of stones laid out in International Morse code near the front entrance of the campus, as well as a 12-foot-high sculpture. This sculpture is the most famous part of the Kryptos, since it contains 4 encrypted messages composed from some 1,800 letters carved out of the copper plate. Interestingly enough, it took more than 8 years for a CIA analyst and a California computer scientist to crack 3 out of 4 coded messages. However, little did either of them know that a small group of NSA cryptologists had beat them to it and deciphered the same 3 sections of the sculpture. In 2010, Sanborn, surprised that the final section had remained unsolved for so long, and feeling guilty about an error he had made in the sculpture that misled puzzle solvers for years, decided to disclose 6 of the 97 letters in the last section. When deciphered, they spell out the word Berlin. This clue has yet to be the breakthrough that code crackers had hoped it would be, since the last section still remains unsolved. The Zodiac Ciphers. You probably already know a lot about the infamous Zodiac Killer, who operated during the 1960s in the Bay Area of California. However, you may not be aware of his cryptic messages that still remain unsolved. Throughout his serial killings, the Zodiac Killer would write letters to the Bay Area press in an attempt to brag and taunt his pursuing officers. However, these weren't ordinary letters. They were ciphers. From the late 1960s to the early 1970s, the Zodiac Killer sent 4 coded letters, where only one of those has actually been solved. His letters were written in 2 parts. While the first part was written in plain text, the other was in cipher text. In 1969, 2 school teachers named Donald and Betty Harden managed to crack one of the ciphers. This one consisted of random symbols corresponding to a plain text message. What's interesting is that his cipher was not all that difficult to solve, since it was a homophonic simple substitution cipher. The cracked code offered frightening insight into the Zodiac's mind. According to the text, he was attempting to collect slaves for the afterlife. While the text gave the reason for his murders, the message never mentioned his name. Even though cryptography has made this case even more mysterious, it never actually helped investigators catch the Zodiac Killer. Still, it managed to give us a few clues about one of the world's most elusive serial killers. The Yogzi Case. One of Germany's most mysterious murders is the bizarre case of Günther Stoll. He was an ordinary, unemployed food technician from Unshausen who, as it turns out, believed that he was being stalked. He often talked about his stalkers to his wife and even claimed that they were planning to kill him. As the story goes, on the evening of October 25, 1984, while sitting quietly in his bedroom, Stoll unexpectedly jumped out of his chair and exclaimed, "I've got it!" Confused, Stoll grabbed a piece of paper and scribbled down 6 letters, YOGTZE. Afterward, he left the house. Around 3 a.m. that night, 2 truck drivers discovered Stoll's Volkswagen in a ditch off Autobahn A45. The car was wrecked. They pulled over to assist and notified the police using a nearby emergency telephone. What they found at the scene was Günther Stoll, still in his car, completely naked and barely conscious. He told the 2 truck drivers that there had been 4 other men in the car with him and that they'd just taken off. Stoll died before reaching the hospital. To make things even more interesting, an investigation revealed that Günther Stoll had not died from the car accident. Instead, he had been run over by a different car at another location. Whoever did this had run Stoll over using a separate vehicle. Then they put him back into the passenger side of his Volkswagen and drove it into a ditch. To this day, no one knows who the 4 men were or what the cryptic letters he was holding in his hands meant. This is perhaps one of the most mysterious cryptic messages ever, but it seems like it will remain unsolved. The fact remains that this man's death is ruled a homicide by the German police, and this case remains strange and unsolved. The Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is considered one of the most mysterious and elusive texts in the world because even after 500 years or so, no cryptologist has been able to decipher it. One of the best things about this book, if you want to look at it that way, is that it is public domain and its entire contents are available on Wikipedia for viewing. Still, its meaning continues to elude both scholars and the general public. Since there's a very good chance you've heard a lot about this mysterious book, we'll focus on some lesser-known facts about it. For example, it's unlikely you've heard that if this text is analyzed under a microscope, a huge number of pages will be seen executed without any correction or slightest error. The execution of such a script is an almost inhuman achievement. It may also be interesting to note that scientists had a very hard time dating this book. This is predominantly because inks used to be derived from soil minerals with an inorganic base without carbon content that is used for dating. However, researchers at the University of Arizona determined that the Voynich Manuscript was written in the 15th century. Thanks to newly developed methods of dating old objects, we can say with a 95% surety that the manuscript was created between 1404 and 1438. The entire manuscript is written in only 25 different letters, with illustrations from pharmacy, botany, biology, astrology, cosmology, and text. The analysis of the text has found that the language pattern resembles the patterns of natural human languages. This all suggests that the Voynich manuscript is not a hoax, as it would be one of the most complex and intelligent hoaxes in our history. What do you think about these mysterious messages and codes? If you feel we missed any important or interesting facts, feel free to share them with other viewers. If you find it interesting, or if you find it mysterious, share and like this video. Also, be sure to subscribe because you don't want to miss what's coming next. As always, thank you for watching.